go ahead and get started with the psychology behind season ticket holder retention. We have Troy Kirby here, Director of Ticket Operations at UC Davis, and also the podcast at Tao of Sports. Sports revenue analytics veteran Troy Kirby interviews the team behind the teams in front offices and athletics departments throughout the world. Examined in this podcast are current or long-standing industry topics, regarding tickets, business analytics, Moneyball, revenue, finance, economy, sales, and jobs of the NCAA, NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Also included are topics surrounding third-party vendors, sports business, revenue, marketing, mentoring interns, facilities, managing employees, as well as how not only to break into sports, but stay in the industry long term. The often invisible side of the industry is where the Tao of Sports podcast attempts to pull back the elusive curtain, providing information both to industry insiders and those who want to work in sports. So without further ado, here's Troy.
And I sliced, dice, and Marianne. So congratulations. You get to put up with me for an hour or half hour, depending on whether or not you hold a riot. Don't worry. I wanted to talk about fan psychology. You know, a lot of times we tend to think of sports in the way of the ultimate fan, and we forget that it is a business. And I know that some of you work in the business, so you understand, but the layman does not, especially when you're dealing with kind of a different reaction to it. You know, we talk about social media as well. Everyone thinks social media is free. Social media is not free. But if the layman, you talk to them, they think social media is free because they don't see the relevancy. They don't see the kind of interactivity of it. I wanted to go over my sports career really quick so that you could be totally dazzled and just amazed. I've spent about 10 years in college athletics, which means that I've had my head banged against the wall as much as anybody else in this room. I also spent 2 years with a professional soccer team, the Spokane Shadow. At the Association of Luxury Suite Directors last week, I actually got to meet my first owner in sports who didn't realize it because he's George Brett and he's a Hall of Famer. So he doesn't, you know, he's kind of the silent partner to his brother Bobby. But this is the quote that Bobby said to me when I first got there. Keep the seats clean, customers happy, and if you discount, I'll end your life. And then some people go, wow, that's really harsh. Guess what? It matters. We're in a business. We're not in a charity. If we're in a charity, then we have to understand that we should all be free as well. That's not the way things work. Now, I've interviewed over 360 sports business professionals. I guess I would call that a PhD in actually knowing what, you know, some of the sports business is, but that doesn't mean I'm the holy writ of everything that ever happens, but I do get a lot of conversations started. Now, here's some of the nicknames that I've had, and before anybody goes, oh wow, he's calling himself nicknames, they're nicknames that people have called me. The most hated man in Montana, I actually won an award from a newspaper who hated their coach that left less than I did. So their coach who left them high and dry, they actually had less vitriol for him than they did for me, a ticket manager, because I leveraged the tickets and didn't allow them to just come over and buy them left and right. So, you know, the other one is Captain Controversy, because I actually had the idea that instead of giving away free tickets, we'd actually sell them at college. And we'd actually have a year-round sales cycle. That's what got Captain Controversy. The last one I got, Sports Sales Pitbull, was kind of one that came over 2 weeks ago in Melbourne. I was there, and one guy goes, wow, you're a pitbull. Now, all these things that kind of come together, and people go, wow, nickname, that's great. Do they hurt? No, but you got to wear it like a badge. It's not a bad thing. It's not a scarlet letter to be called things, because a lot of times people don't know how to define you. So a lot of times I would suggest you define yourself. Here's my business Tao. Revenue matters. Revenue is it. No matter what you're doing, whether it be in social media, whether it be in ticket sales, whatever it is, revenue at the end of the day is all inclusive, all important. If you're not here for revenue, if you're not here to drive revenue for whatever company you work for, whatever franchise, I want to ask you exactly why you're here. What makes you important? Because I'm sure that there's a person that is a truck driver out there, a cab driver out there, who'd love to be a part of the game too if they could actually drive the revenue you have the possibility of driving. So the next time that you're looking at what you're doing, Think about that. And that comes into the idea of no paid spectators. We have a really big problem in this industry of young kids, especially who think they're going to get in the industry and actually sit next to, some of the greatest minds in the world that happen to be big celebrities. They're going to hang out with Charles Barkley and give him a fist bump every night. And then they get discouraged when they actually show up and find out that, wow, I actually have to work like it's a business, and I barely see the sports executives, even come through the door, let alone some celebrity. Now, conditional love is something that we believe in way too much in this industry, and I'd like us to collectively agree to avoid it. Conditional love is the idea that we only love people at certain points. If your mother ever said to you, I will only love you if, that'd be ridiculous. You wouldn't be around your mother. So every single time that we call a season ticket holder and we only call them because we want to get money from them, we're believing in conditional love. We don't really care about them. We don't really want to make sure they had a good experience. I want a transaction. I want to basically get money out of you. That is not something that we're into. We shouldn't be considered just like retail, because like retail stores go out of business pretty quick. And the reason I put Be a Jedi Knight is because I want us to get stuff done. Now, we can all be like Star Trek. We can all stand around in long underwear and discuss pontificate ideas about the world, but none of them get anything done, or if they do, it's very boring. I can't really stand through a Star Trek movie, but Star Wars, they get stuff done. Now, sometimes they go around and they just, swing their sword, but at least they're doing stuff. At least they're trying to resolve issues. Some of them with bigger heads than others, but, you get the point. The point is, I'd like us all to kind of decide that we're a Jedi Knight in some of these things and have creative ideas. Because the problem that we have in this industry as well is we have a lot of replicate and duplicate. We do not have a lot of innovate. I've been told several times by people, oh, I'm an innovator. And then you hear their idea and it's replicate. It's nothing that hasn't been proven also at any other point. Nobody's willing to go out there on a limb and say, hey, I'd like to do something different, because the main question from their boss is, well, who else is doing it first? If we think along those lines, we never get anything innovative done, and we never create. You've got to take chances to fail. Luke Skywalker lost a hand and he still kept going, right? It wasn't necessarily the best decision to face everybody, right? But he still did it. You want to do that. Otherwise, be like Patrick Stewart, lose your hair and get upset and stand around in your long underwear. Undeniable truths. This is not the 1970s anymore. This is a problem that we have, especially with older people who like to believe that as a senior level administrator, they know it all. Remember, you know nothing. Number one, this is not Gandhi's funeral. Gandhi's funeral was the quintessential walk-up crowd. 2 million people just randomly showed up. Your unique thing is not that interesting. You cannot just randomly have people make that choice at the drop of a hat unless you're going to have somebody die. So, be that as it may, you have to really rely on the idea that you have to sell in advance. And if your thought process is to paper hang, which is giving away free tickets, that's basically bad marketing. You're a bad marketeer. You are not going to get people to invest in your product if you're giving it away for free. If you think that that's the possibility of what you're going to do, you're actually turning people off of your product and telling people that it's valueless. People typically do not understand that, but that comes from the conditional love aspect as well. Some great brands up there. Would anybody disagree with their great brands? Apple, Mercedes-Benz, Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson has a sound so unique that they trademark the sound, so you can't copy the sound. But what really makes them great? They respect their product and price points. They refuse discounts. Can anybody get a discount on a Mercedes-Benz? Is there a discount somewhere, right? You're looking at me kind of going, I wish, right? But why? Because you hear people say that, wow, okay, gosh, they have to get a discount in order to come in and experience the product, etc. Mercedes-Benz doesn't do that. When's the last time you really found a deep discount on Apple products? People smash their Apple products. They'll sell you another at the same price. Maybe they'll give you $50 off, but doubtful. There's a reason. You assess quality with the product and the price point. If it's always cheap, you don't really respect it. Now, I'll give you one example. Domino's Pizza. I don't know if anybody's ever actually paid full price for a Domino's Pizza, but I guarantee you you're a sucker if you have, because there are coupons everywhere. They've actually statistically looked at it, and you're more likely to pay half price for a Domino's Pizza based on the listing point than actually pay full price. So if that's true and we drive people through discounts, then let me ask you a question. Why are there other pizza joints that you actually have to pay twice as much for? Wouldn't they go out of business because everyone would go to Domino's Pizza? No, because people assess value based on not only the price, but the price protection that you're willing to pay. It's your value and your price protection that makes the difference. And when these people, great brands, grow their customers, they realize one thing about their customer service. They're not for everybody. And this is one of the hard things to swallow for sports business. There are some people who should not be a part of your product. I know that sounds hard to kind of justify, but at the same time, if somebody's going to show up with $3 and that's the only way we can get them into the building, they're not our customer. They're a customer that really doesn't rely on us beyond a certain price point. And then they show up and then they end up wreaking havoc because, great, they came in at a cheap price. Now they come sit next to your best customer and tell them what a sucker they are for actually paying full price. So now you've got to create havoc. I'll give you a great example, and it happened at the Cubs. They had Ron Santo Day, and they decided to panic. This is a few years ago when Ron Santo was still alive, so Ron Santo Day made a little bit more. So anyway, they were talking to the director of ticket operations yesterday, and he said that Ron Santo Day had a little problem with the outfield. So they decided to do deep discounts on tickets to get everyone to fill out that section. He said it took them 2 years to get over the branding effort that it actually took of season ticket holders and ticket buyers who were ticked that they were sitting next to people that were half price. They had to do free tours. They had to do a lot of mea culpas in order to make up for Ron Santo Day. So the next time somebody tells you, we need to fill the building, we need to do this, think of the people that are already invested in your product and what you're costing yourself by actually showing that you're for everybody. But that's what bad brands do. Bad brands discount their product. They do not respect themselves. How many times have you met a person that does not respect themselves? You don't respect them either, just from the way they carry themselves. And it doesn't mean that everyone has to, have an inflated ego, but let's be honest. There is a difference in how people react to each other, and that's because they believe they're for everybody. Sometimes you got to tell some people no. Discounting doesn't work. You cannot find discounting that works. The cheaper you price, the lower the product value will, and I guarantee your fans will wait for you to panic. And if you ever want to look at this, look at the airlines. Look at the airline model and how quick it is that people wait till 37 days out, 54 days out. Kayak has a great system where it'll show you exactly when it drops, exactly when it goes higher. And if you drop the price, fans remember. And if you don't think they remember, trust me, you're on the wrong side of history because every single buying habit will tell you different. Now, there is a quote that I kind of use every once in a while that you cannot discount your way to revenue success. And I mean it because honestly, if 50% off is really where you got to go, what does that tell you about your price? What does that tell you about the people that actually are interested in your product? They don't really value your product at its original price. And that's one of the problems with the season ticket, is that we look at it as a price structure as well as a life commitment. Now I've got Lauren here. Lauren, congratulations. This is the proposal area. This is you. Lauren, will you marry me?
Well, I'm flattered, but no.
Why not? If I give you a house right now, will you marry me? If I give you a car, will you marry me? Will you change your last name for me? Will you do it? I want you to do it. Will you do it for me? Come on, Lauren. I need you to do this for me.
Sorry.
Okay, so that's a genuine reaction. Now she's traumatized. But let's think about this. What do we do with season tickets? We talk to people who are first-time buyers or who have never bought our product and say, hey, we need to push season tickets, a life commitment. Now, what if she had said yes on an impulse? Would that be really the fan we would want? That's the type of person that quits right away when all of a sudden times are bad. Right? Does that make sense? And also, how do you perceive me in terms of asking you? Don't I seem a little bit desperate? Don't I seem a little bit like I'm actually pushing all of kind of the onus on you that you now have to change everything for me? Right? That's kind of crazy. But yet we have people that routinely do that. So I'm going to play another game. 50, 100, free. Congratulations, you looked at me most. Hi. You're paying at 100%, you're paying at 50%, and you're always free. So no matter what you're paying to get in, you're always paying that price. Are you okay with the fact that you brought 2 more people in and they're paying less than you? Why not? Aren't you more happy that there's more people in the building? Not as a customer, you're not. How about you? Are you going to pay 100% for that product?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
I never get it for free.
Well, you get it for 50%, but I mean, seriously.
But anyway, my buddy here,
Oh, so you're already evaluating what he's doing. Do you not evaluate what he's getting it at? Do you not evaluate what he's getting it at? Are you ever paying full price? Are you ever paying 50%? You don't want to pay anything at all. And why is that? It's clearly free. So every single time that you hear somebody say discounting works, discounting jumps people up, think about that scenario right now. We're not even truly committed in the people. We're trying to capture them at a price point, and we think we'll just elevate it up. We end up making it worse for ourselves, and we're not truly committed. So the new era of sports business is pretty easy. They don't buy like they used to. What does that mean? Back in the day, back in the 1900s, back in, when your grandfather was around and was watching games, it was really hard to watch a baseball game live. It's not. I mean, I can't wait for the next era because it's going to be even worse. I can get it on my iPad. I can get it on my iPhone. I can get any game in the world. I went in to watch the end of the World Cup, and it was interesting because I didn't even see it on a television. I saw it on various iPads sitting in somebody's restaurant or whatever they're doing. The accessibility of games no longer makes games unique. You have to do the marketing and the live experience around the games. Social media fans, what are you guys important for? The fact that you have the ability to use Wi-Fi and other things to enhance the game, even though they're right there in the game, that they actually get to enhance further. I think one of the things that we're going to end up going to is private social media channels that you can only get at Wrigley Field. And you can only connect with Wrigley Field people to where you're tweeting with people or chatting with people or whatever, because they won't want to create a unique effort. Or, here's another idea. How about certain sections to where it's leveraged to where you have the ability to have better Wi-Fi connections? I think that's a pretty good selling point. Imagine all the bad Wi-Fi we've seen, right? Just absolutely horrid. What if there's specific sections, those worst sections in the seating in the house? I guarantee you'll find more people sitting there than even behind home plate because of the desirability to connect. And when I went to Melbourne, Australia, I had the problem because I didn't take my phone with me because I didn't want $1,000 in data charges. You'd be shocked how many times I looked at my hand. That entire week I was traumatized. I didn't have the ability to actually tweet anything out, respond to anybody, even text, even call somebody. So when you're looking at the phone, it's now an appendage. It's now a part of you. So we have to incorporate that as well in order to make it work for people to buy our product. Some old school theories, and I've kind of talked about them, but I wanted to re-up because I'm old and I like to reiterate myself. But these are all hogwash. Fans that pay full price never feel ripped off, especially when you're discounting others. Cheaper today, full price tomorrow. Ridiculous. Free tickets convert buyers. You've already seen an example of these three. And I didn't talk to them beforehand, so none of them knew what I was going to say. Lauren didn't know, as you saw from her reaction. She's now getting a straitjacket on and having to take some Zoloft because she's really upset that I asked her. But really the point is that we're looking at life commitments from people that we're going for short-term gain for ourselves. All it does is benefit us. That's all we care about. It's about price point respect. What are your prices? This is a very good example. So if we're going to discount, isn't that our price? I know that a lot of people don't think that discounting affects it, but tell me if it doesn't affect how women, when you see wedding day, where all of the wedding dresses are 50% off, they all mob the stores to go buy that. But they never buy during the other 364 days out of the year. Some of you men don't even understand wedding day. Look at YouTube. If you've ever seen people fight over something so ridiculous as fabric and actually fight, it would make the UFC actually kind of rival in what they would actually see. I'm serious. But, this comes to the greatest point that we don't value enough. We talk about value in general. The greatest ROI in the world. is tickets. Think of anything in the world. You cannot think of something to where you have to build it and you have to sell it, so the cost to incorporate it wholesale come to enough as a ticket. There is nothing as affordable as a ticket. Not this table. I have to spend money on this table. A ticket is a piece of paper, and yet we have the ability to charge as much as we want for it, or as little as we want for it, and really make a 999.999% gain off of it. It's ridiculous, but yet you'll see people devalue that and value the things which they think have really some more intangible and actually has the worst ROI possible. So you'll see people that'll go, well, we'll discount the tickets to nothing and we'll get more at the concession stand. You still have to pay for the price of the hot dogs, the materials, the workers, everything else. Not so with a ticket. Ticket's a piece of paper. Now, there are some costs with software or whatever, but let's be honest with you. It's not the same. The entry point is not the same. This is one thing that really bothers me, and that's when they focus on wins. So this is something that Rob Sine, the VP of tickets at the Pac-12, always says to me, so I use it because good artists create, great artists steal, and you'll see that later. Hope is not a strategy. You know, only one team wins at the end of the year, and really, if you're selling wins, guess what? You're a loser. Now, all those people will say, well, they've got great branding. I mentioned 2 teams up there. What happened to those 2 teams this year? The bottom dropped out of both of them. How many season tickets and how many fan memberships of those loyal people that had watched 24 years of Laker basketball and 25 years of Manchester United soccer, how many of those people stayed around? About half. All of a sudden you saw big gaps in the seating because all they focused on was the fact that, hey, we're the Manchester United, we're the Lakers. That's all we are. We don't do promotions, we don't do silly stuff. And the second that they started losing, the second all of a sudden that attendance started evaporating. And when it started to evaporate, all of a sudden they saw empty crowds, and now they're having to refocus. Now all of a sudden, Kobe's name isn't enough. It's not enough to have stars. That's because of the fact that the way people treat things is if you're going to sell wins, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. This focuses on customers' wants, needs, and desires. One of the things I don't think we focus on enough. We focus on what we need, what's important to us, what we desire. We desire a full house. We desire to sell a season ticket. But that's important to you because you're getting paid to do it. If you weren't paid to sell this product, how exactly would this product generate money? I mean, you wouldn't buy it, right? Or maybe you would. But the fact is, you're only there because of the fact that you desire to have a job in sports, or you desire to actually be paid, to sell sports. But if you didn't, how would you convey that product and how would you sell it? How would you sell the worst product that you absolutely hate? Every single time I bring this up, a lot of people bring up MLS, and I don't mean to, pick on MLS. I think they have a lot of good engagement, especially with young people. But some people bring it up because soccer isn't the primary sport. But let's pretend you had to sell the sport you absolutely could not stand. Maybe it's baseball, maybe it's hockey. You have to think along those lines. How do you sell that product, and how do you make sure that people actually want to buy that product? And really it comes down to avoiding the ultimate fan. These ultimate fan people that are already in the building. Or if they're not, they're avoiding you because of standings and everything else. So instead, where's the casual fan in this mix? We rarely focus on that. Every minor league baseball has 160 teams. They only have 5,000 seats in the majority of their venues. Yet they generate about 44 million customers a year. Now, if I gave you those odds and broke those down, statistically, Major League Baseball wouldn't even come close. I mean, the amount of capacity and everything else. Nobody ever focuses on the amount of standings that are, whether somebody's high or low. The Iowa Cubs don't care. Because you come into the facility, it's all about making sure you had a good time. That you forget the fact of whether or not they won, they lost. All of these people that focus on, that winning and losing, as what I've stated, they fall apart. So focus on the fun. Focus on moving people up the sales escalator. At the end of the day, your actually competition is not other sports teams. I know a lot of people have this idea that competition is really just the sports teams involved. It's also the movies. It's Transformers. It's everything else that can possibly give you a thrill ride of your life. And at the end of it, do we really care whether or not Transformers was the epic movie of, like the greatest Oscar-winning movie. No, we always evaluate, did I have a good enough time? There's a reason that they sell 3D to that and not to the Oscar winners, because they're different things and they're different points. Comes to general admission, I always see people try to advocate for why we have to keep general admission, and I always find this funny. You'll see this especially in certain fields and colleges and stuff. We got to keep the GA. Absolutely the worst idea. It creates a perception that you're never sold out, even if you are. And the worst customers, by the way, who buy into general admission, they tend to go into the best seats. Give you a prime example. There's a lady back there who's sitting on her iPad or MacBook Pro behind us. She's not even looking at me right now, but she's right back there. No, right there. Hi. But she's, I kind of said, hey, there's a camera there, whatever. She's still plugged in and she did what she wanted. I'm not upset by it, but it shows the mentality of the way people act. As much as you tell me where I'm supposed to go, if I'm not required to, I don't have to. So I don't. So if it says general admission, I'm also going to sneak down to whatever seats I damn well please. I'm going to do whatever I want. So that's why you have to get them on a location-based system. It kind of requires them for certain areas, especially when you deal with ushers, who, by the way, typically are not the people that are there 24/7, and they're not totally invested in your product because they're paid $9 an hour for the event. This goes into location in general. Each of you made a choice in this room. I want you to think about that choice you made. Some of you made bad choices, like this gentleman over here who got picked on, or Lauren, or whatever, but you each sat in different areas. You thought, okay, proximity to the stage, location of the exit, somebody's going to ask me to marry him, everything. But really, location matters in terms of price more than anything else. And so that's what people value. A lot of times we don't even focus on location. How many times have you gone to the venue and the bathrooms, ladies, are the worst thing ever for you? The lines are absolutely atrocious. I guarantee if I tried to sell you a ticket where you had better access to bathrooms, I would have every woman in this room try to jump at it. I've never found a woman that has not wanted more access to bathrooms, usually because the lines are longer. Is that correct? I mean, I'm not wrong on that. I'm picking on you now. Yeah, it's a simple thing, but it sounds ridiculous, but at the same time, it makes a lot of sense. But a lot of people really kind of avoid it because they go, well, what's a location? I mean, behind home plate's a location. They focus on the location of the field and not so much at what's happening in the concourse. I know people that focus on the fact that they can get a pretzel at this certain time of the game or this certain time of the event. So that's when they got to go to their pretzel stand. Well, if that's the case and that's what's important to them, wants, needs, desires, it still comes down to it. All of these things really come down to the moral victories equal empty calories. And I know that a lot of you have kind of said, well, we need a full house. The only person that remembers that, aside from you, is you. That's it. Most full houses don't matter 2-3 years from now, 2-3 weeks from now. And this comes to that conditional love. And when you bring corporate sponsors on, and they think they're going to get a certain amount of people to abide by their stuff, and then they find out that half the house is unpaid, they didn't activate anybody. Plus, let's face it, a lot of times unpaid houses usually don't show up. The measurements that they've had is that 9 to 10% of free tickets actually show up. Because what's the difference? I'm going to pick on you now. I give you free tickets to something. Now your wife comes to you 2 days before and says, honey, we've got that event. We've got that other event we have to do. Which are you doing? You doing what she wants that you invested in, or are you doing the free tickets?
Probably the free tickets on a wife, but I would otherwise do.
Okay, so we have a person that will remain single his whole life. So this is good. You get my point, is that you're going with a place to where you've invested in, not so much, because you're going to go, I don't need that. So aside from the outlier here who will not be married because he will not understand it's really he has no choice, that's about it. So really we have to focus on sports sales culture, and this is where it comes to, I know that you're fan engagement, and you're more social media, and you're more digital, and you're thinking, what does this have to do with sports? If I talk to Jeremy McPeak at the Phoenix Suns, he will tell you the same thing. It all comes down to revenue, it all comes down to customer service. If somebody is actually, responding to you in any way and they have a problem, cater to them, leave no customer behind. But if they are not paying for your product, if they aren't your customer, Don't worry about them. You hear the idea of trolls? I get trolls on my Twitter account all the time. It's great to block and report. Just ignore them. They're not your customer. They're not people that you have to worry about. But really, it's beyond a transaction. You're moving them up that membership escalator, whether it be a season ticket, whether it be a membership in general. You want them to belong. You want them to think about the fact that if they quit you, well, they're not going to get anything. They're going to leave, and that's going to be really hard for them. But you're going to have to date them. You're going to have to marry them. And that means a long-term commitment, except for you who won't be married. But everybody else will gradually do it. And when you marry them, you have to continue to date them. Because as some of you older people know who have not been divorced, it can't just be where you go to that Chinese restaurant every year for your anniversary. You actually have to really promote it. You have to really push it forward. This is that line of demarcation where we create the conversation with non-season ticket holders. A lot of people don't like to do this. I love to do this. Create that conversation. What is that conversation? What do I get? What do I not get if I'm not one? You can't sell legacy to entry point customers, as I've said, but also those lapsed people. Why are they not back with you? Maybe it's because you don't have enough added value. Now think about added value for a minute. If I had the ability to position where people had, for a season ticket, they had the ability to go to a concession stand, they were the only people that would go, what would that say to your non-customers? Wow, I better join up. I mean, how many times have you seen point systems to where people earn extra nights, free things, because, they're really garnering it? That comes back to the concourse. You can still have extra lines. How about if I had the ability as a season ticket holder to enter a stadium 30 minutes, an hour early? I think that'd be pretty big value, especially when people ask, how'd you get in so early? What'd you do? The Tampa Bay Lightning have a system that they use specifically for season ticket members. They sent them all a jersey. And you think, wow, you're giving them free stuff. They're a season ticket holder. They changed their logo. They wanted to give them a free jersey. They embedded a chip. So when you wear that jersey, or sweater if you're a hockey fan, but if you show up to the game, you get a certain percentage to where you get off on concessions. You get off on merchandise. And they figured it out to where a lot of people use it, but they don't really discount that much, but it still shows the real permeation of how they get through, whether they access the building early, etc. Now think about that for a second. If you're a non-season ticket holder, and you keep seeing these people get a different price than you, this comes back to the full price. What do you evaluate? How do I get it? What do I have to do? That's creating the conversation. Too many times we like to think that the conversation is created on the one side. Oh, people are just going to automatically assume. Never assume. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. And this means being an innovator with your brand and being that high quality brand. We all see trailer park brands. I am sure that all of you have the ability, instead of getting an iPad, to get one of those knockoffs. One of those ones that are like $50. What are those knockoffs worth by comparison? They don't have all the apps that you need. They don't have the customer service. If I go to the Apple store right now with a iPad that's not working or an iPhone that's not working, I guarantee you they will drop to their knees and make sure that I am thrilled and I am happy with my service. Those other ones, you bought it from Amazon. I don't know where you're at. You have to fight with them. You end up having to spend just about as much money to return it as you actually did to actually buy it. This comes to stadium touchpoints. And I was talking about those brand ambassadors prior, that are ushers. They don't really care. Nobody ever thinks about this stuff, and this really bothers me. It's because, anybody that they interact with within the stadium who's a team or stadium personnel, those people are your brand. Regardless of if you think that they are not, they are part of your brand. That means questions. What are they saying? How are they interacting? And what is the message that they should deliver? Consider that for a minute. We'll always talk about now social media channels. What are you supposed to say on social media channels? Because we expect that all 3 million people will get that message, which the big message, who knows? But what about when you deal with a surly usher? What about when you deal with a surly concessionaire? A friend tweeted out something about a Legionnaire, and he said, it's really great that I got this discount, but I walked on and the stewardess, or flight attendant or whatever, was bitching about her job and the fact that she wasn't paid enough, and we should all feel sorry for her. How does that make you feel about that brand? How does that change your opinion of that brand? And how does that change the conversation of that brand? You now position yourself to where you think, that's the way the airlines feel. That's the way that customer feels. That's the way that person feels. That worker feels that way, that's god awful. They've ruined my day. We don't want that. So every single time you need to talk, and Ruby's a good example. If you guys listen to Ruby Newell-Legler, she's great at this stuff. She's phenomenal. She's not here, so don't look around. But the point is that you guys have to really focus on the fact of understanding every single person and every single touch point matters. These brand ambassadors, that's exactly it. And Smile Technology is a big thing she's on. And that seems so simple. And yet you will see so many people not tell their ushers to smile, to be happy. Imagine that. Imagine if you walk into a place where they're not happy. I had an interesting experience. This happened when I got here on Saturday night, and I want to share it with you. So I walk into a restaurant. Other restaurants are packed. I walk in, the hostess sees me, it's about 11 o'clock at night, and she looks and she goes, not another one, and walks away. How do I feel about that restaurant? I mean, seriously, that's pretty aggressive, right? Do I want to eat at that restaurant? I don't know if she's going to spit in my food. I don't know how she's going to react to me. How many times have you been into a restaurant where they throw the plate onto the table? They're like, and then they expect a tip. They expect not only a tip, but they expect you to over-tip. Go to Seattle sometimes, trust me. I'm from Seattle. I can gripe about the area and the fact that they will frown at you and expect a 25% tip. That's the way Seattle is. Expect the Seattle chill. But we cannot allow that to happen, and you make sure that every single one of the people that works in your facility really cares about being there. Because if they don't have the reasons to be there, then you aren't building the experience, and they expect your brand, and then there's no reasons to be there in the first place. And this comes down to the 3 P's of sports business. Presence, perception, potential. You always have the potential to build more. There's always the potential to really go after the idea that no matter what we're doing, we can always do better. A lot of people kind of go, well, but we're sports. We don't have to worry about that. You always have to worry. You should always have a cell phone by your head going, anytime there's a problem, I got to fix it. If you go into the Chicago Cubs right now and you're a season ticket holder or anybody that's bought, they actually have it where when your ticket's scanned, they actually know when you come in the building, and it sends them an alert. And when they get an alert, they go, aha, I got to do a seat visit. Why is that? Why do they care? They've already got your money. 81 games, they've got plenty of time. They want to make sure that you're happy. They want to make sure that you know we want you here. We want you to have a relationship with us to where if I decide that, hey, I'm going to call you up, you're going to go, hey, man, we were talking just about golf. We were talking about other things. That's what matters. These are those continual touch points, special invites, birthdays. The Cubs have one as well. They allow you on the field. Tell me everybody who would not pay for the ability to go on Wrigley Field. I don't care if you're a baseball fan or not. That's pretty special, right? They come to select season ticket holders and go, you know what? You've been here for 7 years. I'll let you come on the Wrigley Field during batting practice. I went there yesterday and I had the ability to. So did Ward. Ward, example. How did you feel about that? You're not a Cubs fan. Did you feel that that was a special thing that would have made you tie better into the Wrigley Field?
Absolutely.
That's my point. So, there you go. Got caught. Anyway, so we've got fan memberships, and you'll hear a lot about these things. And what's funny is the San Diego Padres are doing them, Phoenix Suns are doing them, and these fan memberships are like, oh, this is the way we're going to rebrand season tickets. We're going to talk about fan memberships. The problem with it is, I attended an AFL game when I was over in Melbourne about 2 weeks ago. This is Sunday night footy. Nothing else is going on. It's like fashioned after Sunday night football. They had 120,000 combined members. 40,000 show up because all of a sudden those people didn't value the product and they always thought they paid in. They paid in. They don't need to come for more. So all these teams that are in the U.S. trying to rely on that model, they're also forgetting that AFL teams typically don't rely on those internal per caps like concessions, merchandise, parking, etc. because that's owned by the stadium. So they don't care if you show up. How does that make you feel? You're just a member. You're somebody that either you pay $400 a year or you pay $4,000. We don't care. And that's why they have low retention problems for the first 4 years. A lot of people typically drop out. This comes to dynamic ticket pricing. Dynamic ticket pricing, we can charge whatever we want for our product. Is that really ethical? You know, Russ Stanley told me this on the podcast. Goes up 91% of the time. Anybody else correct 91% of the time? Are you? You're not correct 91% of the time. If you are, I need you to go to Vegas right now, and we need to get you at a gambling table. Because if you're that correct 91% of the time, you have basically the luck of the world. So we have to think about that. Are we gouging our fans? Are we actually driving a lot of money right now, and then we're going to end up paying for it later? And you know who pays for it the most? The people that are best ambassadors of the game that we never think about. Little kids. Because what happens when that price goes a little too high? Dad, all of a sudden you're going, I might take my client to that game. I'm not going to take the kid. Because the kid, you know, that's great, but I need to make sure I do some business with these season tickets or these other things. It's ridiculous. And we're going to end up costing ourselves to where if you look at the PPMs of young kids, they're going to drop drastically. And these are those, you know, statistics, because everyone loves statistics. I want to finish up with these because everybody loves statistics. So I can give you statistics that everyone brags about. We had 85% renewal rate. That means you had 15% that said bye. So 8 to 10 years from now, you've got those people going bye, and you've turned over your entire base. That's ridiculous. You've lost your entire fan base over a 10-year period. How do you continue to go on? You're having people float and lapse membership. No wonder. But the payment plans are something interesting, and I think that's one of the problems that we have is we still focus on I need you to essentially marry me. I need you to essentially give me the money up front. Anybody have $15,000 they can spend right now? Yet we ask that of somebody. Hey, I need you to spend those $15,000 right now. No way in which we, do a small lump sum payment up front and then we do an incremental payment. Nothing like that. We just expect it $15,000 right now. Some people can afford it. A lot of people can't. Why do you think we have problems with season tickets? And that allows them to have no opportunity to opt out if you do try to change a payment plan so they have the ability to pay long term. It's like your Netflix account. They don't think about it. These are always those tribes of influence types of things. We talk about season ticket holders in general. They're people that influence others. And this means having special hospitality areas, getting the members to ask those questions why they aren't joining, everything. To where when my buddy gets in and I don't, I'm suddenly questioning, well, how do I get to be a part of this? And those are those social circles. You guys all have, 1,000 friends on Facebook? You're all a social influencer whether you realize it or not. Now talk to me about those people that have those exact 5,000 Facebook friends. Those people that speak to 5,000 and have a ton of requests, and you've met them. Or those Twitter followers of 10,000 or more. Those people all have one big thing in common. They all have the idea that they own a group. Now they have that trust, access, honesty, engagement, whatever you want to call it. But really it comes down to the fact that no matter what, those people go where that one influencer goes. So this means that engagement 24/7. And engagement's both physical and social, and I'm kind of reading off the thing because I'm trying to make sure we get through it because Lauren's upset at me. She doesn't want to marry me and she says I'm out of time. But really it comes down to this. Whatever you're doing, I want you to look at what other people are doing and steal it. Good artists create, great artists steal. Innovation is really copying off of others' failed ideas. And I think that if you're here for revenue, you have to understand the psychology is more than just deep discounting. The psychology is more than ripping people off. The psychology is understanding why people want to join your product in the first place and how do you keep them there. So with that, I guess I'll end it because Finn, I should have put that up there as well. Finn, like an old French film. But I do want to thank you for putting up with me. So I don't know if anybody has questions or anything or if I just lectured you out of the room. But any questions, preguntas? Okay, good. Hey, thank you very much.